Hello, welcome to Geography Podcast number 1. Topic today is going to be about the Haitian earthquake with myself, Mr. Baxter.
And me, Mr. Allsopp.
Right then, so, Sir, Haiti earthquake. Any recollection? It was in 2010.
I mean, not really.
I know you're slightly younger than I am, but not by a lot, so...
I remember it happening. I remember seeing stuff in the news. It rings a bell, but it's one of those events that just seems to have just gone out of my head.
Okay, well, let's quiz you just to start with.
Right, okay.
Whereabouts is Haiti?
Haiti. South Pacific?
No, it's a Caribbean island.
Oh, right, okay.
So you literally probably couldn't be further away.
Yeah, literally the other side of the world.
Pretty much. Okay, so we're in the Caribbean.
Enlighten me.
A group of islands just off the coast of America. And it's really poor. Some people suggest Haiti is actually one of the poorest islands in the entire world.
Oh dear.
So we're starting to build up a picture. Anyway, in 2010, there was a really big earthquake. And we measure earthquakes on something called the Richter scale, named after the guy that first, I guess, had an interest in earthquakes and measuring the strength. So the Richter scale is from 1 to 10. Never had a 10. This was a 7. You don't get too many 7s. If you then realise that a 7.0 hit a poor country, we're already thinking there's going to be a few issues there.
They're not going to be able to cope, are they?
Yeah.
Right, so my geography is sketchy. I haven't done it since I was year 9. What causes an earthquake? Come on, refresh me.
Okay, well, the world that we live on is always moving. So the ground that we live on, which is called the crust.
Yeah.
It's the very thin part of the world. But it's not smooth. It's all made up of different, and I always refer to it as jigsaw pieces. Some are moving one way, some are moving the other.
Tectonic plates.
Tectonic plates. It's all coming back to you now. Very good. So in this instance, it's called a conservative boundary. So you've got a massive jigsaw piece called the North American plate and a tiny piece called the Caribbean plate, and they were simply rubbing past each other.
Right.
So if you put your hands together like you are praying, like that, and you imagine they're both trying to force into each other, and you can feel that pressure building, can't you?
Yeah. Hope you're doing this at home as well, guys.
Well, they're probably not, but okay, we can give it a go. And then imagine all of a sudden one hand going up, one hand going down very quickly, and that's basically that slip motion. That's what created this earthquake. You with me?
I'm with you.
Okay,
brilliant.
Great stuff.
Right, so all right, you've said Haiti is one of the most poorest islands in the world, if not the poorest. What happened to it? Like, obviously, it's still a country today. There's obviously still people there. What happened when this earthquake happened?
Yeah, well, pretty much straight away, as you can imagine, a lot of the buildings collapsed. You know, it's estimated somewhere between 70 and 80% of the island collapsed, which is quite a lot. And obviously, one of the biggest killers when you have an earthquake is buildings collapsing on you.
Rubble, yeah.
Yeah, all the rubble falling down on you. So roughly, again, it's always difficult to get these numbers, but around about 230,000 people died, which is a lot of people. And it hit the capital as well. It's called Port-au-Prince, which was the most developed part. If you're going to have a good building, it's going to be in the capital. But most of the capital collapsed. This is where lots of the people died. 300,000 people were injured as well. But the problem you had is if you luckily survived, where are you going to go? If that was you, your building's collapsed, massive earthquake, where are you going to go?
I don't know. Anywhere. Any safe house.
Your arm's hanging off, for instance. Where would you go?
Hospital.
You go to the hospital.
But that's fell down as well, surely.
Yeah. That was the big issue here. The hospital collapsed, and all important buildings as well, like the presidential palace, was basically split in two, which sort of acted as a symbol of how bad it actually was, because there was no government to then make decisions. So when we talk about this case study, yes, loads and loads of people died straight away, obviously, but the secondary impacts were also bad. You know, loads of people died of their injuries. 9,000 people died of cholera, so they managed to survive. Okay, great, but then after that, obviously poor sanitation, no fresh water, they're drinking what they can. Cholera is a disease you get from drinking poor water, and 9,000 people died as a result there. And, you know, and I'm sure you can appreciate the scene. It's like people were basically taken by hand from the rubble, and basically any building that was standing became a makeshift hospital. A lot of surgeries were done without any anaesthetic whatsoever. The person operating on you may well not have been fully qualified, but obviously needs must
Desperate
at the time. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so you've mentioned a bit there, like what people did after. chucked any resources we had at them. Surely there was a more global response, possibly global aid. I don't know.
Yeah.
What else happened to respond to this disaster?
Well, that's it. The Haitians, they couldn't look after themselves, so they basically called for aid. And aid did come from other Caribbean islands, from America. The UK gave several £million, I think about £30 million in aid. The problem with this sort of aid, though, it goes there to begin with, but once that runs out, that's it. We don't continually give them aid, which is often the misconception. And just for instance, 4 years after this, in 2014, half of the rubble was still there because help came to begin with, and then that was it. Once I guess the cynic in me would say, once the global media has moved away, there's not that focused, we decided not to help. So a lot of people were left living in basically what they called tent villages, and that's what it was, a village just full of tents. And you might have to share with loads of people. And unfortunately, there was reports of murders. This was an incredibly lawless place to live after the earthquake, as you can imagine. Rape was rife, theft. So when we talk about
cannibalism,
not that I'm aware of, is that a thing that people do?
Well, I don't know.
I guess to survive.
Yeah.
Not quite sure that happened.
One
but,
step too far. So.
I think so. Makes sense.
Yeah, another really positive podcast.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a running theme in these ones, aren't they? So that'll be goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.